everyone, my name is Roya, and today I am wrapping up the 4 books that I read in the latter half of December. I'm sorry that this is so late. I just didn't really have that much time to film this earlier in the month, but I read 4 books in December, like I said, and 3 of them are actually in the same series, so I'm just going to get right into it, and this will probably be a fairly quick video compared to some of my other wrap-ups lately. So the first book I'm going to talk to you about is The Six Gun Tarot by R.S. Belger. This is kind of a Wild Westy type of paranormal book, and a lot of it wasn't quite as Wild West as I wanted. It was a lot more just kind of old-timey, but like there was still some Wild West aspects to it, and the paranormal aspects were, there's kind of your standard like angels and demons and blah, but there's also just like, I don't know, just some dark ass shit going on, and it's just kind of weird. There's a lot of gratuitous grossness, like not quite body horror, but just grosser than I necessarily wanted and stuff. So overall, I really liked this book. I enjoyed reading it. It was kind of like, we follow a lot of characters, and a lot of the characters were really entertaining, but it was also kind of a bummer that every time we get a woman who's like really badass and really takes charge of her own life and all of that stuff, she still kind of melts as soon as she sees a man, and I'm like, come on, people. I don't know. So there were a lot of just weird things like that with the characters going on, and I'm just like, really? But overall, not a bad read, and I might continue with this series. And finally, I read Different Worlds, New World, and One World. These are books 1.5, 2, and 3 in the Iamos trilogy. So this is... I read the first one, Fourth World, earlier this year, just a couple months ago. The whole series was sent to me for review by Snowy Wings Publishing. They did send me the physical book of the first one, but I did get ebooks of all of them, and it is a really good series. What is actually kind of interesting to me about it, too, is that it doesn't read like an indie book, and I know that, you know, it is through an indie publisher, so that's a little bit different from, like, self-published, and I've read a lot of Snowy Wings Publishing's books, though, and they're all really great, but still, this book does not read like an indie book. It literally reads similarly to traditionally published books in the same vein that I've read. Like, so I'm actually really surprised. I was actually really surprised reading it that it read so much like it was a traditionally published book. So it is kind of interesting. But anyway, so this is about a boy who goes back in time. Like, he lives on Mars. This is kind of a near future type of thing, where Mars has been, you know, essentially terraformed and people do live on it. So then he actually goes back in time on Mars. So he actually goes back in time on Mars and ends up in a far future society, where some of the planets actually, like Venus, is actually really close to Earth and all that stuff. It's just really weird. And the society he ends up in, because there are actually people there, and it's a far future type of world, but it's actually in the past on Mars, and it is nuts, and it's like a weird dystopian totalitarian nightmare, and he does not like the society at all. He meets a girl from there. She helps him get back to his own time, and they try to find a way to go back in time again and save her people from past but far future society Mars. So starting with the in-between book, Different Worlds, this is a novella length, kind of what's going on at the same time as part of the first book. And this one, I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, because it kind of just follows the main character's friends, just friends from school, basically, who you don't really know at that point are gonna be that big of a part of the plot. Because in the first book, they're kind of just his friends from school, and then by the end of the first book, suddenly they're really significant, and it doesn't really, it's kind of confusing why. But then you read this one, and it's like, oh, that's what they were doing in the meantime while he was gone. And that was actually a really, really good book, and was really interesting to kind of see what was going on there. And then our main story continues again with all of them together in the second book. And then the third book I think was my least favorite because it got so draggy in the middle, but and I think it definitely felt a lot longer. The first few books actually felt really fast, like I could barely put them down. The last one is a little bit draggier, but there is just so much more going on, and it seemed like it was kind of hard to juggle the multiple points of views, and it tries to really alternate between what's going on over here and what's going on meanwhile back at the ranch, and instead of really alternating them, I think it would have flowed better if they were almost like more alternating, but instead we get a good chunk of this story and then a good chunk of this story and then back to this story. It could have been split up like a little bit more, I think, but overall this whole series is really good and I highly recommend it. I might do a full review of the whole series in a lot more detail. I think that might be really fun. But anyway, so those are the books that I read in the latter half of December. Let me know if you've read any of these, have any thoughts on them, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!